So let me tell you a little bit about our organization. I think probably most of you are familiar with American Atheists. Can you raise your hand if you know us pretty well or you've heard of us? Probably most of you. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. So we are a member-supported nonprofit. Our goal is to defend the civil rights of atheists. We are civil rights activists. That's what we do. We also advocate for the total separation of religion and government and address issues of First Amendment public policy. Additionally, we encourage atheists to come out of the closet. Our organization represents the atheistic point of view in America to the news media. One of our goals is education, and along that line, we also publish a magazine called American Atheist. We have a TV show that's broadcast in, I believe, 46 stations called Atheist Viewpoint. We have a rare book library at our headquarters in New Jersey and a historical document archive. And we also do debates and talks like this one. And then the other thing that we do is the social aspect of the atheist community. We have our annual convention every year. Our next one is in Salt Lake City over Easter weekend. And then we have about 120 local affiliate groups around the country. There are 7 in Missouri. I think there are 2 in Kansas. Soma is one of them. So that's just a little bit about us. This year, 2013, is our 50th anniversary. We were started in 1963 by Madeline Murray O'Hare. I don't know if you guys are as familiar with her as some older people might be. In 1964, she was called the most hated woman in America. She was famous for, in 1963, there was a Supreme Court case where basically mandatory Bible readings in public schools was made illegal. A lot of people were very upset about that. We are the oldest atheist organization in the country, and we have, it varies, but about 3,000 to 4,000 members at any given time. So that's a little bit about us. American Atheists is the hardline atheist organization. We're the ones who do the dirty work of highlighting the harm that religion does. We don't shy away from telling the truth loudly that gods aren't real, that religions are scams. Respect is earned when it comes to beliefs, and irrational beliefs like religion have not earned that. So that's pretty much where we stand. So this talk today is about public relations and why it should matter to you. So how many people here are part of a local group? Pretty much everybody. That's great. If you're not, you should be. It's really important. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Every group needs a spokesperson, somebody, a leader to take charge of where you're meeting and things like that. But also just to be part of the community, you're going to be interacting with news people on occasion, and you have to have somebody who's responsible for that. It can be the same person as the leader of your group, but it doesn't have to be. I want you to understand that because atheists are in the minority in this country, that alone is newsworthy in certain situations or circumstances. So you have to be aware of this when you're talking to news people. We go against the grain, and things that go against the grain are by nature newsworthy. So the definition of public relations, there's a couple of different ones, but basically it's managing your group's reputation. That's what it is. I want to make it clear that manage does not mean spin. Spin is another way of saying polishing the truth. Spin is unethical, and we don't encourage that. It's not my job to change the public perception of American atheists. It is not my job to cover up things that might make us look bad. And if that ever came up, I would refuse to do so. I don't imagine that it ever would if I was asked. American Atheists we're the meanies of the atheism world, and we know that. In fact, that's why I wanted to work for American Atheists in the first place as PR director. It makes my job a challenge, but I enjoy that. We say things that people don't like and tend to take personally. We're seen as jerks, but it's because we have a commitment to honesty, and I'll come back to that here in a minute. It's not my job to make people like us. It's my job to make sure that people understand our position accurately and completely. How they perceive us is up to them, and that's out of our hands. Reducing bigotry is one of our goals, but we don't do this by hiding how we feel, and neither should you, by the way. We do it by calling bigots out on their bigotry. So, as far as your group's reputation is your reputation too. If your group has a negative or an inaccurate reputation in your community, that's going to affect you. I know plenty of people who are uncomfortable disclosing that they're affiliated with a local group because they're worried about negative consequences at work or at home. And in some cases, they have real reasons to be worried about that. But that's why we do what we do. We work hard to destigmatize atheism, to show people that, first of all, we're more numerous than most people probably realize, but really it's about clearing up misconceptions about what atheists are or who we are. We're very moral people, very ethical people. It's usually just stemming from a misunderstanding about us. So PR is about making sure that the media has everything that they need to tell the public what's happening in the news. It's about correcting misinformation, not replacing bad misinformation that makes you look bad with good misinformation that makes you look better. Just to give you an example here, okay, the Catholic Church, because of their position on things like LGBTQ issues, birth control, condom use, sexual abuse of children, it makes all Catholics look bad for tacitly supporting that by being part of it. Not all Catholics are bad. We understand that. There are some very moral and ethical Catholic people out there who do positive things for the world. But because of things that other people in the Catholic Church do, it makes all of them look bad. And the reverse is also true. A group is made up of individuals, and how each individual behaves reflects on the group. A church is a building. It can't abuse children. It's incapable of that. It's people that do those things, and it's just something that we have to keep in mind. So in practical terms, what PR is providing quotes or opinion pieces or just information about events that you're doing to the news. It's also doing things like making announcements, putting out press releases, keeping bloggers up to date with what you're doing. And you should have a social media presence. Every group should. It's managing your social media. If you have a blog, keeping that up to date, your Twitter and your Facebook and whatever else you use. So PR is not the same as marketing. People confuse these a lot, and there's an important distinction. With marketing, you have complete control over the content of your message. You're paying for it, and you get say over it. That's just how it works. With public relations, someone else has complete control over the content of your message. It's your job to make sure that the information that they have is accurate, good or bad, but you don't really get a final say in that at all. Sometimes they'll run it by you for a fact check, but that's about it. It's very important that you supply only accurate information or accurate to the best of your knowledge or the best of your ability. And if it's really just to the best of your knowledge, then make that clear to the reporter. Reporters hate issuing retractions for obvious reasons. It makes them look bad. They won't trust you in the future. Good reporters will verify everything that you tell them anyway, so it's not worth it. The difference between marketing and public relations is that with marketing, you just pay for it and you're in. There are some restrictions on what you can say. There are some FCC rules and other things like that. But generally, you can say what you want. With public relations, you have to build a relationship with the reporters based on mutual trust. You're trusting the reporter not to spin your story and to tell it the way it actually happened, and they're trusting you to give them accurate information about what they need to write the story. As a bonus, you can improve public perception of atheists by always being honest in the news. There are temptations to stretch the truth or to cover things up that might make your organization look bad. Don't do this. If something makes you look bad, admit it. make plans to fix it, and be honest about that. Tell the public what you're going to do and to make sure that it doesn't happen again. People understand that mistakes happen and will usually give you the benefit of the doubt. That doesn't necessarily go for atheists. Just to be honest here, we don't usually get the benefit of the doubt, or sometimes don't. But this is something that's getting better, though. That's why we do what we do. The more we show people that we're moral and compassionate and ethical in our behavior, the better things get. So when I was putting this together, I'm filling in for somebody who had to cancel at the last minute here. And on my Facebook, I just asked for ideas. I basically said, I'm doing a talk. It should have something to do with public relations. What would you like to know? So one person asked for basically what a day for me typically looks like. So this is a day in the life of a PR person. Those are supposed to come up one at a time. So I wake up at 7. The first thing I do is check my email for anything that happened overnight that I need to respond to right away. I usually get to my office at 8:30 or 9. The first thing I do when I get there is check my email again, respond to things that came up. We check our Twitter, Facebook posts. I'm in charge of our Facebook page, so if there are trolls or anything, I take care of that. If people have questions, I answer their questions. We use a service called Meltwater. Are you guys familiar with Google Alerts? You know how these work? It's basically a keyword that Google will email you anytime something that Google indexes shows that keyword. Meltwater is similar, but it's for news services, and it's worldwide. It's not necessarily things that have just been indexed by Google. It's a lot more broad-ranging than that. So every morning, we get 10 or 20 or 50 hits from Meltwater about things having to do with atheism or religion or faith or bombings or anything like that. We have a whole list of keywords that it pulls from. So I read over those, Google Alerts. Next thing I do is I hit the atheism subreddit and look for important things that are just starting to happen, the top ranking things, and also the news section. I go and I read about 20 or 30 blogs every day, all the atheism bloggers. I hit those. Does everybody here read Morning Heresy? Are you familiar with it at least? Raise your hand if you're familiar with Morning Heresy. I figured Tony is. So Center for Inquiry, Paul Fidalgo, every morning, Monday through Friday, publishes a wonderful page. It's basically just a blog of important news items that happened in the last 24 hours having to do with atheism. It makes my job a whole lot easier that he does this. It's really great stuff, and it's just nice to keep up with that. If you're at all interested in atheism activism or just atheism news, Morning Heresy, again, is what it's called. I recommend checking it out. The next thing I do, I have many newspapers that I subscribe to. I didn't list them all here, but I read those, the religion sections especially, but just poke through for anything else important that's going on. CNN Religion Blog, HuffPo Religion section. If something happens, if something comes up, this is not official. I don't actually rank them. This is just kind of in my head. But there are basically 4 levels of things that I will start to take care of in order of how important they are. So for very big news, the main level of it, these are things that Dave Silverman needs to address on TV. My job is basically includes getting him on television or in the news to respond to things like that come up that are important. Usually, if it's something big, a producer will call us at the office to set it up, or I can call them to set it up. Just to give you some examples, just from the last month, our 50th anniversary convention, when we kicked that off, that was pretty big news. We had some news people come down and interview him. When the New York Circuit Judge ruled against us on our World Trade Center cross lawsuit, we had him on TV for that. Sometimes less interesting, or not less interesting, but just less groundbreaking big news stories also get some TV coverage. Like, for example, a couple of weeks ago, Fox News did a story about there was this public high school in Massachusetts that had it was just a school play, but they portrayed Jesus as gay, and it was a big deal in that community. And Fox News wanted a balance to the person upset about this, and they brought Dave on to talk about free speech. So that's just an example of that. The second kind of level of thing, number 2, I guess, in priority, if it's not as big news, but it's still something that we need to address, we'll send out a press release responding to it. we have a database of reporters and journalists across the country that we pull from and just send depending on what it is. Usually if we send out a press release, it's because we're announcing that we're going to do something about whatever this is. For less important things, but we still want to respond to them or talk about them, we'll write what's called a position statement, which basically just says this is how we feel about it, what we would like to see happen, but we're not going to pursue it with a lawsuit or something like that. And we just post that on our blog and on Facebook and tweet a link to it. Sometimes we'll do things like write op-eds or letters to the editor to newspapers, or write guest posts for other blogs about it, if that's the case. And then kind of the fourth level of stuff, if something minorly interesting happened that I want people to know about, I'll just tweet a link to it, or I'll just post a link to it on our Facebook page, maybe with a couple sentences about what I think about it. Other things that I do, I do a lot of phone interviews, Skype interviews, answer our hate mail, appear on podcasts. I mean, I don't need to read this out to you, it's right there. And I do this for 10 or 12 hours a day, every other weekend or so. Let's see, I guess it's been 6 weeks since I started, and this is my fourth one. I travel to conferences to give talks or to table. I'm available to speak at your school. I'm happy to do that. The other main thing about doing PR, I'm always on call. If another 9/11 happens at 4 in the morning, I have to have a press release ready in 15 minutes or less. There have been some issues that came up where I've gotten a call at 2 in the morning and I have to take care of something. If something comes up at this conference, I mean, not while I'm on stage, but I have my computer with me all the time if I have to respond to something. That's just part of, it goes with the territory of doing public relations. Our office, I got some questions about this too. It's actually pretty relaxed. I mean, we're busy, but we don't have a set dress code. We don't have set hours. As long as we get our work done, Dave is really cool about that. We don't really have any issues like that. I do keep a suit and a tie in my office, so does Dave, in case we have to appear on TV. We weren't expecting it. That comes up sometimes. So how does this apply to you guys? Oh, so this is a press release, just to show you what one looks like. This is a real press release that I wrote and sent out yesterday. Yesterday afternoon, the Boy Scouts of America announced that they are putting to a vote at their big annual meeting whether they're going to allow gay scouts. This has a lot of personal meaning to me. I was pretty excited to hear that they're moving forward on this because gay rights is not something that American Atheists focuses on. We wanted to respond to it, but it's something that has to do with atheism. So we basically said we're pleased to hear this. We would also like to see them not discriminate against atheists. So sent this out. I'm not going to go through this with you, but if you want to know what the parts of a press release are and how to put one together, you can just Google how to write a press release. They're pretty formulaic. And then I sent this out to about 2,000 reporters, so, okay. So as far as applying this to your local group, I want to emphasize this is not just for your group leaders. This is something that everybody in your group is a part of. You represent atheism to your community if you're an out atheist. So I'll talk more about that here in a minute. So, I mean, obviously your local groups are not going to need, a full-time PR person, but you should still have somebody specified who's in charge of it, and preferably a backup person too. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but reporters, they're on deadlines, and they need to be able to reach somebody immediately if something comes up. I'll talk more about that in a minute. So, something to keep in mind, you never know when something is going to happen, something good or something bad. It can happen in very short notice. If something big happens and it could have a very serious effect on your reputation as a group, you have to be ready to respond to it. One of the worst things that can happen in this type of situation is if you're unavailable for comment. They will still run the story if it's important, they just won't have your side of it. They'll say, what's even worse, you were unavailable for comment. That's not something that you want. You want to say your side of the story. You want to be available for them for that purpose. if something important is happening, think of it as an opportunity to grow your group and to destigmatize atheism. If you do it right, that's what should be accomplished by participating in news stories like this. So basically, what I want for local groups, what I want you to understand, is that you have to have a plan. Know who will represent your group, make sure this person has all of the facts that they need, have a pre-formatted press release ready to go where all you have to do is plug in the specifics of what happened, and the phone numbers and the city and all the contact information, everything is ready to go. You should know where to send your press release before you need that information. If you don't know reporters in your town that cover religion, that's information that you should have ready to go. It's easy to get this information. Most, if not all, newspapers and magazines will have a list at the bottom of the page. It'll say, contact us page, or our writers or something like that. You just look for who covers the religion beat, and that's your person. If you can't find it online, just call them and say who covers religion. They'll give you their phone number and email address. It's important information for you to have. If you can't find this information, just call me. I can help you find it. I have a huge database of all of this stuff, and I can narrow it by geographic region, and I can just send you a list. Let me give you a couple examples. I picked a couple from Kansas City that were very recent to show you what happens when you have a really strong PR presence that is ready to respond immediately to something big happening. And it comes out positively for the group, or at least helps them grow in that way. So I'm sure you all know about the Kansas City Atheist Coalition and the St. Patrick's Day Parade. If you don't, I'll just go over it really quickly. Basically, they wanted to participate in the St. Patrick's Day Parade. They were denied that because they're an atheist group and it's a religious parade, even though there were many other groups that had nothing to do with religion, a plumber and a soft drink company that participated. And this became national news because they responded to it in the right way. They released a press release immediately. They put it up on Reddit, and it took off. And there are ways to make sure that this kind of thing happens. How many of you are Redditors? Just raise your hand. About 20% of you. Reddit is a great website. It's not for everybody. I'll just say that. But I use it hours a day, every day. It's very, very useful for atheism activism. And if you know what you're doing, it's really not difficult to get something a lot of exposure on Reddit. There's this kind of myth that getting to the front page is something that happens by luck. That's not true. I've gotten many things to the front page on purpose because I needed them there. And it's something that you can learn how to do. It has to do with basically writing a good headline and having something important and spreading the word about it. That's about it. So another example of something very recent that happened, Roger Gorley and the Research Medical Center. Are you familiar with this story? So this just happened. So Roger, his partner was in the hospital receiving treatment. They're married, but the hospital denied him access and actually had him arrested, I think, for trespassing was the charge, because he refused to leave his partner's side because their marriage is not recognized in this state, I think this was on the Missouri side, even though they had powers of attorney for each other and paperwork showing that they were married. It was a big deal, again, because people close to the situation responded to it in exactly the way you're supposed to, with a press release ready to go, with information available on the web. They put it up on Reddit. They were available for reporters. This is the sort of thing that you have to be ready to do if you want to make a big splash. So basically, one other thing I want you to know, you can ask for help. If something big comes up and you don't feel like your group is ready to handle this, there are professional people in the atheism movement who get paid to do it. That's what we're here for. Paul Fidalgo at CFI, Jesse Galiff at SSA, me at American Atheists. We're happy to help you with this. We have the resources to do it, and we can do it much more efficiently than you can. So don't hesitate to get in touch with us, even if you're not an affiliate. If you're not an affiliate, by the way, you should affiliate with us. But talk to me about that later. But yeah, call one of us. We can help you. That's what we're here for. So just, yeah, I mean, tell us what happened. We can put a press release together. We can get it out. What's news? This is, I'll come back to this in a second. This is not true anymore, but it still has a place. Editors and producers have a lot of power as far as what the public has exposure to. So it's important to make things easy for them to do their jobs. They're not lazy, they're efficient people, and if you give them what they're looking for, they'll respond to it. You can make it easier for them by doing specific things. It's not that they don't care about your story, it's that if it takes too much time, it's old news by the time they're ready to publish it. If they're on a deadline, if they're a newspaper or something like that, they don't have time to do this sort of digging. But if you're available to answer questions and you can give them what they need, if they're TV and you have video of something, if you can send them the video, even if it's just a camera phone, they can use that. If they are a radio and you can give them an audio clip, they can use that. One of the biggest pet peeves, and I'll talk more about this in a second also, I asked around basically some reporters for things that they don't like. And one of the ones that I kept hearing was, I do radio, and somebody's like, is it okay if I email you? No, it's not okay. I can't use that. I do radio. You need to call me if I'm going to put it on the air. So that's just something to keep in mind. And this is what I was talking about a second ago. In 2013, you don't need to depend on editors to distribute news. You can distribute news yourself. We can help you with this, but things like Reddit, send this out to the big bloggers. They can put it up. There is a certain filter that goes in. We don't want to spam people, but it's easier to do this now on your own. I just want to mention, there's saying, there's no such thing as bad press. That's total bullshit. There is such a thing as bad press. But if you're responsible and you're ethical in how you handle a situation, you can come off looking very good in a bad situation. So keep that in mind. So some more PR issues for your local group. Even if you're not the designated PR person for your group or your group leader, develop an eye for public relations. Let me explain what I mean by this. If you're into photography, you start seeing things, you start framing things in your head by what would make a good photo. If you're a musician, you start hearing rhythms in everyday sounds. You can do this for public relations too. Start thinking about what kinds of things other people would be interested in knowing. They don't have to be huge, groundbreaking, big events. It can just be, we're having a weekly meeting and this time we're gonna provide free snacks. That kind of thing makes it into the paper. There are sections in the newspaper for stuff like that. That's the sort of thing that you should be talking about and talking to reporters about. Stuff that makes it into the news is often just a result of having good relationships with journalists. They cover things based on who they know a lot of the time. Not that they won't seek out other people too, but it's easy for them to go to people that they know, people that they trust especially, to accomplish just day-to-day things. Reporters also go to experts when they have a story about something, say there's some kind of religious scandal and they want an atheist perspective on it. They would prefer, somebody like Greg Epstein or something, but they don't always have time or the ability to access to get a quote from somebody like that. So if your local paper wants to know the atheist point of view on something, make sure that they know that you're there and that you're happy to speak for atheists in your community. The way that you do that is you call them and you introduce yourself and you say, we have this group, we're getting both sides of the story, even if there aren't two sides to the story. And you can use this to your advantage sometimes to get your point of view across in religious stories. Just to give you an example of stories where there's only one side, climate change deniers are a good example of this. In the news, you'll often see a legitimate story about climate change and then the point of view from a denier. there's no controversy there, but they want to make it look like they made an effort to be balanced, so they'll talk to him anyway. I really don't like climate change deniers. Sorry. So one thing that you really have to watch out for, reporters, not good ones, journalism school students, and reporters who are new or just not that great at it will come to you with a headline already written in their head that they want to make your story fit into. And they will pressure you into saying, like, oh, so this happened, and you have to correct them. Sometimes you have to be blunt about it and say, that is not accurate, that is not what happened, and here's what's really happened. When they hear the word inaccurate, that gets their attention. So make sure that they understand if they seem to be approaching you with an idea for a story that isn't accurate, make sure that you get across to them that that's not what it is. And if you're working with professional, good reporters, this won't come up. So, like I said, I talked to some reporters and just asked them, what do you hate when you're talking to people who bring you news? So the number one thing that I heard was just not respecting that they're on a deadline. News gets stale very quickly, and it's important to understand if their deadline is 4 p.m. for an evening paper, you cannot get back to them at 3:30 and say, here's your quote. They won't be able to get it in. They have to write it, they have to get it approved by their editor, they have to fact check it, they have to do a layout, and you can't do it. So if they leave you a message at 9 in the morning saying we want a quote, you have to call them back 10 minutes later, and that you have to be available for that sort of thing. The next thing that I heard a lot about is poorly written press releases. You have to have a punchy headline, you have to be very succinct. Like I said, just Google how to write a press release, you'll find a ton of advice about this. It's something that gets a lot easier with practice, and like I said, there are professional people in the atheism movement who are happy to help you do this, who can do it for you if you don't have time or you don't know how. We're happy to help you, just call us. Insufficient contact information, this is a big one. If you just have one person listed and it's just their email address, you're probably not going to get called on it unless it's a huge story that they really, really want. You should, I wouldn't say at a minimum because you don't really want too many people, but you should have 2 people or 3 that they can contact if they can't get a hold of your main person. And you should always, always have a phone number. In a press release, it's okay to put your cell number. That it may be leaked onto just the normal internet, but usually they keep that, to themselves, and if they understand it's your cell, they won't leak it. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're working with reporters. They are accustomed to dealing with people who are not used to being on the news, who do things amateurishly, and that's okay. They understand that. But if you are more professional about your approach, they really appreciate it, and it makes their job a lot easier, and they'll want to work with you again. And then the other thing that I kept hearing was just basically that they get spammed a lot. Their information is out there on the internet, and people know that they're reporters, and they just send them stuff. And they're like, this isn't even what I cover. This isn't even close to what I cover. I don't care. And unsolicited email about something I don't care about is called spam, so don't do that. It's really, really easy to find reporters that do care about the stuff that you're producing. Just make sure that you're only talking to those people. So, as I mentioned before, as an out atheist, you're already in PR, kind of whether you want to be or not. In your community, if somebody knows that you're an atheist, you represent atheism, especially if it's a community where there are not a lot of atheists. They're going to assume that you are representative of all atheists, and it's important that you relay a message that is accurate to what you want to say. That doesn't mean that you should stifle your opinion in order to portray a positive image. I'll come back to this in a second. You should share your opinions and be honest with people about it. If you're a closeted atheist, you're in an even more special position. You're in a unique position to to very accurately represent atheists. If somebody doesn't know that you're an atheist and they think of you as a moral person, as a compassionate person, as a friend of theirs, and then they find out that you're an atheist, they can't be prejudiced about what an atheist is. So that's something to keep in mind if you're in the closet. If you're talking to somebody and they know that you're an atheist, yes, you are representing atheism to them, but don't change your behavior. Don't feel pressured to change your behavior to make atheists look better. Be yourself. That's okay. We want people to understand who we are, and we don't want to misrepresent ourselves even for positive purposes. It is not our fault that some people don't like us. It is their fault for being intolerant. We want to fix that. I just want to give you an example. So during the gay rights movement in the 70s, there are parallels to our movement, of course, but there were basically two camps, and I'm simplifying, but there were the people who wore a suit and tie and ran for public office and gave speeches and tried to make being gay a part of acceptable, respectable society. And then there were the gay rights activists who wore assless chaps and feather boas and got up on parade floats, and that's okay. But the suit and tie wearing ones got upset at the parade float ones, saying, "You're making us look bad." And the parade float ones said, "We should not have to change who we are. If they don't think that we're respectable, then they should change their definition of what's respectable. We're people too, and we can do what we want. It's not up to them how we behave." Thank you. You need both kinds of activists. You need the conciliatory ones, and you need the ones who are willing to push the envelope. That's not a bad thing. If somebody doesn't like atheists because they believe false things about atheists, that is something that we should directly address. We want to correct misinformation. If they think that you're bad because you worship the devil, talk about that. That's something that we can fix. So when it comes to public relations, someone requested that I address this in my talk. If you're wrong about something, first thing you should do is make sure that you're wrong. If you need more time, if a reporter accuses you of being incorrect about something and you want to verify it, just tell them that. Say, "I need to verify that I'm wrong about this before I comment on that." That's okay, they'll understand. If you are indeed wrong, immediately admit it. Do it quickly. Fix the problem. Sincerely apologize. It happens to everybody. Just Wednesday, CNN and the Wall Street Journal both had to issue corrections. They both broadcast that one of the Boston bombers had been arrested, and that wasn't true at the time. They just sent out a correction. It's not a big deal. It happens to even the big ones. But the main thing that you want to remember is when you admit that you're wrong, you want everybody who saw the original story to see the correction. So you have to be just as loud about the correction as you were about the original story. But it's just the honest thing to do. It's important. Try not to do it again. It really is just that simple. So my first day at American Atheists, March 4th, it was a whirlwind of a day. We launched a billboard campaign in Texas promoting our 50th anniversary convention, 7 billboards quoting various political figures, the Pope, a few other people, basically just showing terrible, awful things that they said or are true about them. For example, there was one that showed Rick Perry, and it said his solution to school shootings, prayer. It's sickening, but that's how he sees it. One of our billboards had a quotation from Sarah Palin that was inaccurate. It said the word should instead of the word could inside of quotation marks. We were wrong, and we got called out on it. we issued an immediate apology to Sarah, and we said we're going to fix the billboard. The story about us fixing the billboard, because we were so quick to do it and said we're going to make this right, that actually turned into a bigger story than us launching the billboards in the first place. It was the top story on HuffPo that day on CNN's religion blog, apologizing to Sarah Palin from an atheist organization. That it's a good headline. Yeah, I mean, the message, though, that everybody got from that day was that we're honest, and it was a mistake, and we hold ourselves to a high standard when it comes to accuracy. Really, what more could you want in a news story about atheists? So really, I mean, just the lesson from all this, if you make a mistake, admit it immediately, fix it, apologize for doing it, try not to do it again. That's really all there is to it. So one of the other things I was asked about is American Atheists' PR strategy. We don't have a strategy. We just tell the truth. And I'm not trying to belittle the person who asked that question, but that's really not how we do it. It doesn't mean we don't have confidential information. Every organization has confidential information. If there's something that somebody asks us that we don't want to comment on, we just say we don't want to comment on that. But we're the ones who say, if somebody claims to know something that they could not possibly know, we call them a liar because they're a liar. If we have, as an organization, no problem saying that Muhammad was a pedophile because Muhammad was a pedophile. And if Muslims have a problem with that, they shouldn't expend so much energy honoring a pedophile. Sometimes the truth hurts. Thank you. American Atheists does not mind being the bad atheists because it helps atheism. So let me explain. We don't mind emphasizing the division between accommodationists and confrontationists that I was talking about earlier with the gay rights movement. We want people to know about that. Where we're in the news for doing something that makes us look like dicks, like suing the World Trade Center Memorial, I mean, we understand that it makes us look bad, but that doesn't bother us. And the reason is, whenever something like that happens, CNN does a story saying, look at these atheists, they're terrible people, they don't care about other people's feelings. But not all atheists are like that. Compare them to the humanist community at Harvard, or the Secular Student Alliance, or the American Humanist Association. There are good atheists too, and they do this balance thing that they always like. So what does that mean? That means there are good atheists. That means CNN just said there are good atheists. And if you're the type of person who thinks that all atheists are bad, you have to deal with that information coming from CNN. So that's why we do it. If you want to call that a strategy, that's okay with me, but that's how we do it. I've got to speed this up a little bit. I was asked how we decide what court cases we pursue. The answer is really simple. We pursue the ones that we are confident we can win. It's often a matter of precedent and a matter of evidence. There are some cases that are much more egregious that we decide not to pursue because we don't think we'll win. Because we're donation funded, it's our responsibility to be responsible with our donors' money. And we do our best to win cases. That's what we do, to set precedent, to break down discrimination against atheists. I was asked, do we ever worry about our reputation? No, we don't. We're generally actually unconcerned with our reputation, which makes my job interesting. Like I said, we're the meanies of the movement, we know that. But we're civil rights activists. Martin Luther King Jr. was not popular during his lifetime. Gandhi was not popular during his lifetime. Madalyn Murray O'Hair was very unpopular during her lifetime. All of them were murdered, as it turns out. But our goal is equality for atheists, and we will never back down from that until we have it. We want atheism destigmatized until the day that nobody dreams of discriminating against atheists. We have the same rights as everyone else. There is no middle ground when it comes to equality. It's all or none. We want it, and we're ready, willing, and able to fight for it. Here are a couple of our billboards. I don't have time to get into them, sorry about that. So just really quickly, here are some things you can do to help the movement. If you're not out, come out. That's the number one thing that you can do. Help us reach critical mass necessary to tip the scales so we're seen as normal and mainstream Americans. This is already true in some areas of the country, like Portland or Seattle or San Francisco, and that's why American Atheists never takes our conferences there, because people don't care. It's just not a big deal. It's like, we've got an atheist over here, nobody cares. It's why we go to places like Salt Lake City, which is where our next one is, where there are a lot of ex-Mormons, and it's a big deal to people to be an atheist. By the way, you should come to that because it's really cheap for students and it's a great conference. So, let's see. I mentioned this earlier. If your parents are very religious and you still depend on them financially, don't come out. You can wait. No, I'm serious. I mean, it's funny, but I've seen a lot of people's lives destroyed. We get some heartbreaking mail about this. It really hurts when we hear about this kind of thing. You can wait. It's not the end of the world to wait a couple of years. If you're not part of a group, join a group. Just bottom line, we are social animals. We work better when we have moral support. It's just very important. Self-identify as an activist. When you see something, say something, to borrow from the New York City subway system. If something upsets you, don't just say that's a shame. Ask yourself, what can I do about this? And then do that. If you don't understand why you should give a damn, is Greta in here? Okay, go buy her book. Her book is for sale. Please buy it if you haven't read it already. It's wonderful. I keep a copy on my desk, and whenever I feel like it's a long day and I don't care, I open it up and then I'm fired up again. You can also help the movement by supporting other activists, and I mean money. That's what I mean. You can volunteer, and that's great. We want you to volunteer. But other things that you can do, join these organizations. I'm not just talking about American Atheists, but all of the atheism organizations. They're nonprofits, and they depend on you. If you can afford it, donate money to them, because, I mean, we are doing this professionally to help everybody, and we understand that not everybody has the time and the energy to do it themselves, and they still want it done. So we can help you with that. There are some other things you can do. You can write letters to the editor. You can write guest blog posts. A lot of bloggers are happy to have somebody else do it for a day if you have something useful to say. Participate in activism activities. Come to meetings. Come to conferences. Amanda Knief, she's not at this conference, but she just wrote a book, it's actually not even out yet, called The Citizen Lobbyist, that trains you on about how to lobby, how to go to your congresspeople and say, I'm a voter, these are issues that I care about, and what are you going to do to respond to this in a way that satisfies me, that I deserve. And then the last thing I have to say, if you witness a church-state separation violation or a matter of discrimination, document it, video, audio, photos, whatever it is. Contact us. If you can't document it, please still contact us. You do not have to, and you should not tolerate bigotry. You don't have to do that. Things will not get better unless we take action. We will be the bad guys so that you don't have to be. Please stay in touch. Thank you.